Welcome back to Study Hall, listeners. Ready for another deep dive? Today, we're going to be looking at something I think we're all pretty familiar with. Birthday gifts.
Ah, yes. Birthday gifts.
But I bet you there's some things about them that, that we're not so familiar with.
You know, you're absolutely right. For instance, did you know that way back in the day, birthday celebrations weren't really about individuals?
Oh, so who were they for?
They were more for, like, the elite.
Okay, the elite.
And deities.
Wow, deities.
Imagine, like, a world where just, everyday people, their birthdays weren't even really marked down on the calendar. It just wasn't a thing.
Yeah.
Kind of a bummer, huh?
You know, speaking of ancient times, where should we start our historical deep dive? Where do we begin? What's a good jumping off point?
Well, we've got to start in ancient Egypt.
Okay, I like it.
I mean, you think of pharaohs, right?
Yeah.
And you think of just, like, grandeur,
Majesty.
power, right? Well, their birthdays, they weren't even really about, like, the day they were born. It was more about the day that they, like, ascended.
Ascended to what?
To being, like, the god king, right? Like, when they became pharaoh,
Interesting.
these were big, massive displays of power.
I bet.
And, like, all the gifts that they got, they weren't just presents, they were symbols, right? Like these big symbols that reinforce their status.
Like what kind of gifts are we talking here?
Oh, we're talking about mountains of gold, exotic perfumes. I mean, some of them were even given, like, live animals.
Oh, wow. That's incredible.
It's amazing, right?
Yeah, so it's like a birthday, but also like a coronation at the same time.
Right, exactly. It makes you think about, even like today, how some of our traditions maybe, echoes of that. From way back then. But how about we switch gears? We go to ancient Greece for a minute.
Ooh, Greece. I love Greece.
So they might have actually had, like, the very, very early version of our birthday cake.
I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
They used to offer these cakes shaped like the moon with candles on them to the goddess Artemis.
Okay, so like our modern birthday cake could be traced back to an offering to a moon goddess.
Possibly. Isn't that a cool thought?
That's a very cool thought. I like that a lot. But so didn't the Romans kind of play a big role in making birthdays, like, more for everybody?
They did. They were the ones who really made it popular to celebrate everybody's birthday, not just the elite.
Okay.
But even their gift giving was all about, like, good fortune, warding off bad luck.
Oh.
So, for example, they used to give honey cakes.
Honey cakes. Interesting.
Yeah.
So why honey cakes?
Well, it was like a symbol, right, for a sweet and prosperous year to come.
Ooh.
That's why they gave them to people. But then, now this is where it gets really interesting.
Okay, hit me.
So the early Christians, they weren't huge fans of birthday celebrations.
They weren't. What was the problem?
They thought it was a little too pagan.
Oh, too pagan.
Yeah. And even a little suspicious.
Suspicious, okay.
They were very skeptical of anything that had to do with Roman festivals and the whole emperor worship thing.
Yeah, I can see that.
It makes sense, right?
Right.
But as Christianity evolved, so did their stance on birthdays.
So what happened? How does it change?
Well, gifts started to take on a whole new meaning.
A new meaning, okay.
They became like symbols of blessings and protection.
So from warding off evil spirits to inviting good ones.
Kind of, yeah. And this evolution of meaning, you can see it across different cultures.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Like, take China.
China, okay.
Their whole thing with birthdays is about longevity and prosperity.
Right.
So they have these symbolic gifts, like, really long noodles, which represent a long life.
Oh, yeah, I see that.
And red envelopes full of money for good fortune.
That's a good one.
It's a really good one, actually.
It really makes you think about how gift giving can reflect those values and beliefs that go way beyond just the material possessions,
Exactly. And it brings us to a really fascinating shift in the way birthdays were celebrated, especially in the West. The Victorians, with all their sentimentality, they really kind of changed the game, didn't they?
Ah, the Victorians.
Yeah.
Known for their elaborate customs and, well, let's just say unique expressions of affection.
Right.
So how did their sentimentality, how that affect birthday gifts? How did it play into birthday gifts?
Well, their gift giving went a little beyond just like a simple bouquet, Handmade gifts, they became super popular back then.
Oh.
And every little stitch, every brush stroke, they were all imbued with like meaning, personal meaning, And yes, even the infamous lockets of hair.
Lockets of hair. I mean, a little creepy by today's standards.
Oh, for sure.
But it really does show you just how much they wanted to, like, capture those connections,
Right,
like
right.
make it something real,
Exactly. It was all about expressing those really, really deep sentiments, but like through objects. But then the 20th century happens and we see this huge shift.
Oh, yeah. Things start changing rapidly in the 20th century.
Mass production starts taking off, advertising just explodes everywhere, and suddenly birthdays are all about those store-bought gifts.
It's funny you say that. I remember being a kid looking at toy catalogs, circling everything I wanted.
Totally.
I had to have the shiny new bike, the latest video game, all that.
Yeah.
Looking back, it's amazing how consumerism really took over our birthday traditions.
It really did. It was a big turning point,
Yeah.
In gift-giving history, we went from those really carefully crafted expressions of sentiment to just, mass-produced items.
Yeah.
Often just fueled by marketing and wanting to have the latest trends, the new thing.
Do you think we lost something along the way?
Hmm.
Going from the handmade to the mass-produced?
Maybe. That's a really good question.
Yeah.
But before we get too deep into consumerism, let's get back to the psychology of giving gifts. Like, why do we do it at all? What's happening up there in our brains when we're looking for that perfect present?
Yeah. It's a good question. There's a whole other side to this, right?
Absolutely.
It's not just about the history.
Yeah.
A gift, just the act of giving it, it could bring up all these different feelings. For the person who's giving the gift and the person who's getting it.
Totally.
It's definitely more than just handing someone some random object. There's got to be something deeper going on.
Right. It really is about expressing love, appreciation. Like, it's a real, tangible symbol of those feelings.
That's like you're saying, I care about you, but with a little something extra to really show it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And giving a gift can actually make relationships stronger. When you give something to someone, you're kind of creating this closeness, a connection with them. It's like you're saying, I see you, I value you, and I want to be in this relationship.
I think a lot of times we only think about how the person getting the gift feels, but it feels really good to find the perfect gift for someone. That feeling when you know you've nailed it.
Yeah.
It's almost like you're giving yourself a gift too,
Yeah. And you know what? It goes back to that idea of effort.
Okay.
That the effort you put into a gift, that often matters way more than how much it costs.
Right. Like a card you made yourself or a book you picked out because you really thought they'd like it.
Exactly.
That can mean so much more than some expensive thing that has no thought behind it.
Absolutely.
But of course, getting gifts is pretty great too. Who doesn't love that feeling of surprise?
Oh, yeah. There's actually a physical reaction that happens in our brains when we get gifts.
Oh, really? Like what kind of reaction?
Studies have shown that it triggers dopamine, which is like a pleasure chemical.
So we're actually wired to enjoy getting presents. Interesting.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
But doesn't that whole gift exchange also tap into something called reciprocity?
It does.
You mean that sense of, oh, I got to give them something back
Yeah.
because they gave me something.
Exactly. Like you gotta even the score.
Yeah.
It's a big social rule, in lots of different cultures. It's like if we get something but don't give back, something feels off. It's almost like an unspoken agreement, a social contract.
So it's not just about those nice feelings of giving and receiving. There's this social pressure too.
Right.
To keep the gifts flowing back and forth.
But that doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing.
Okay.
Reciprocity, it's actually a big part of what makes relationships work.
All right.
It helps us get along and keeps communities strong. It's like this dance between personal feelings and what society expects of us.
A delicate dance, indeed. But birthday gifts, they can be more than just about showing love or following social rules.
Yeah.
They can also mark big moments in someone's life.
Yes. Think about those landmark birthdays. Sweet 16, turning 21, big anniversaries. Those usually come with bigger, more important gifts, right?
Yeah.
Because they show a change, like starting a new chapter.
Oh, right.
For example, you give someone a watch for their 18th birthday.
Yeah.
It's like a symbol of becoming an adult, having to be responsible.
That's really interesting. And what about those 100-day celebrations they have in some Asian cultures? Those are pretty fascinating.
They are. They're all about celebrating a new life,
Right.
wishing the baby good health and a future filled with success. And those gifts they give during those celebrations,
Yeah.
they're full of tradition, cultural meaning. It just shows how different cultures find their own unique ways to make gift-giving part of birthday traditions.
It really does. It goes to show just how strong this tradition is.
Yeah.
We've covered a lot, from ancient Egypt to Victorian lockets of hair.
Mm-hmm.
What really sticks out to you in all this? What's the most surprising or interesting thing about the history of birthday gifts?
I think it's amazing how this simple act of giving someone a gift is tied to so many things.
Yeah,
Our values, our beliefs, how we connect with each other.
right.
It really reflects who we are, both individually and as a society.
Mm.
How we celebrate birthdays, what gifts we pick. It's all part of a bigger story, a story about our culture and history.
Each gift is like this little piece of a much larger picture.
Exactly.
And knowing that, well, it can make the gifts we give and receive today even more meaningful.
It really can. And that brings us to a really interesting point. How has gift giving changed in the 21st century?
Yeah.
Are we still stuck in that consumerism cycle, or are things changing?
I'm so curious to hear your thoughts on that.
Oh, it's a fascinating topic.
But we're going to have to save that for the next part of our deep dive.
We are.
So stay tuned, listeners. We'll be back soon to explore what birthday gift giving looks like today. Welcome back to Study Hall, everyone. We've journeyed from the ancient world, with their rituals, all the way to the Victorians and their lockets of hair.
Yep, those lockets.
Exploring the history and the psychology behind birthday gifts.
Right.
But now let's shift gears and talk about the present,
Yeah, let's bring it to the 21st century.
What's going on today?
It's amazing how a tradition with roots that go so far back still keeps changing.
Yeah, for sure. So where are we now with birthday gifts? Is it all about consumerism?
Hmm?
Or are we seeing something different, something maybe a little deeper emerge?
That's a great question. I think it's kind of a mixed bag right now.
Okay.
On one hand, there's definitely still that pressure, to buy the newest gadget, to throw those extravagant parties, to just have more and more stuff.
Yeah, I see that.
But then at the same time, there's this movement towards personalized gifts
Okay.
and experiences.
Yeah, I'm seeing that too. Like people are putting more thought into it. It's not just running to the store and grabbing the first thing you see.
Exactly.
It's more about finding something unique, something that really speaks to the person you're giving it to.
Yes. Like, remember how we talked about the Victorians and their handmade gifts?
Yeah.
It's like we're coming back around to that.
Right.
Appreciating those things that are, made with love, those vintage finds, items with a story.
It's about quality over quantity, isn't it?
Yeah. I think we're realizing that, those experiences, they actually bring more joy.
Right. More lasting joy than just a bunch of stuff.
They do. And you get to make those memories with people you care about, which is, priceless.
It's so interesting when you think about it, right?
Yeah.
Like way back when, those ancient Egyptian birthdays were all about showing off your wealth, your power.
Right.
But today, it seems like people are looking for something more fulfilling, something that connects us in a different way.
I agree. And let's not forget about charitable giving.
Oh, yeah. That's a big one.
More and more people are choosing to donate to a good cause instead of getting presents.
It's like a gift with a double meaning, right?
Yeah.
You're celebrating someone's birthday and making a positive impact at the same time.
Exactly.
It's a really beautiful thing.
It is.
So even though consumerism is still a part of it all, it's really encouraging to see these other ways of giving gifts popping up.
I agree. It shows that people are really starting to think about their choices.
Mm-hmm. They want to make their gifts meaningful.
They do.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, where do we go from here? What does all of this mean for us?
Well, I think the biggest thing is just being aware.
Being aware.
Knowing the history, the psychology behind gift giving, it lets us approach it with more intention, more thoughtfulness.
Yeah.
We can ask ourselves what really matters to this person. What would make them feel truly seen, appreciated, loved?
Right. It's about focusing on the gesture, the meaning behind it, rather than just the stuff.
Exactly.
And remembering that showing you care, whether through words, actions, or a gift, is what truly matters.
Beautifully said.
So as we end this deep dive, I have to ask, how do you feel about birthday gifts now?
Ooh, good question.
Has your perspective changed at all?
I know, mine has.
It's really incredible how something as seemingly simple as a birthday gift can have so many layers.
It really is.
This deep dive has really made me appreciate the history, the psychology, how gift-giving has evolved over time.
Absolutely.
And I hope it's giving you, our listeners, something to think about as well.
Yes.
Maybe you'll choose to give a different kind of gift this year,
Yeah.
something with more meaning.
Or maybe donate to a cause you believe in.
Right.
Or just take a moment to really appreciate those gifts you receive.
It's all about the thought, isn't it?
It really is.
Well, thanks for joining us on this journey of discovery. Until next time, Keep those minds curious and never stop exploring.